Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Rising. Sagar, what are we doing today?
Well, we've got a great show today. We have David Pakman, the progressive YouTuber, is going to tell us about Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Asia expert Gordon Chang to talk about Hong Kong and the China tariff situation. And, of course, Team Rising to break down some very interesting new polling. All that coming up today on Rising. Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
So we've got some news this morning out of the Tulsi Gabbard campaign. On Monday, Congresswoman Gabbard will be taking a 2-week leave of absence in order to report for active duty with the Hawaiian Army National Guard in Indonesia. Tulsi told CBS.
I love our country. I love being able to serve our country in so many ways, including as a soldier. And so while some people are telling me, like, gosh, this is a terrible time to leave the campaign, can't you find a way out of it? That's not what this is about.
That's right. Tulsi Gabbard, who has been accused by the media and a bunch of hashtag resistance idiots on Twitter of being a Russian plant, is putting her own life aside once again to go and serve this country. Can we finally drop the nonsense here and call Tulsi Gabbard what she is, which is a patriot? Just imagine if Pete Buttigieg was suspending his campaign to go serve, the media would be throwing rose petals at his feet. But not Tulsi. From the jump, she's been dismissed and otherized by a media that seems unable to grapple with a servicewoman who dares question the bipartisan war consensus. For example, NBC News ran a piece saying that her campaign was being promoted by Russian bots, and they cited exactly one expert, a group called New Knowledge, that was caught fabricating Russian bot interference in the Alabama Senate race. That was not disclosed, of course, in the piece, and they are hardly a credible source. The Daily Beast ran a piece with a headline that blared, "Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being boosted by Putin apologists." In order to justify this smear, they found 3 people out of Tulsi's roughly 70,000 donors who appear to have some sort of Russian sympathies. It was absolutely pathetic. And then there's the central smear that is used to justify all of this derision and dismissal of Tulsi's campaign. Let's hear it, Kamala.
She who has embraced and been an apologist for him in a way that she refuses to call him a war criminal. I can only take what she says in her opinion so seriously.
I can only take what she says so seriously. Kudos to Kamala here for an absolutely flawless example of the Tulsi's and Assad puppet smear. She asserts that Tulsi is an apologist for Assad without explaining what she means at all, and then uses this smear to dismiss Tulsi and her critique out of hand. Now, this is exactly the same trick that the media has pulled. Nearly every time that Tulsi sits for an interview, she is once again berated with a series of questions about Assad that she has already answered roughly 1,000,000 times. Her interaction with Assad is weaponized to undercut everything else Tulsi might have to say about the American warfighting machine. Just like with Kamala, the message is, you don't have to take anything Tulsi says seriously because Assad. And what about that interaction with Assad when Tulsi traveled to Syria and met with him? First of all, it requires an unbelievable amount of blindness and hypocrisy to dismiss Tulsi for one visit to Syria, while turning the other cheek as politicians for decades have cozied up to the brutal and disgusting Saudi regime. But second, many of the people who are criticizing Tulsi have a bit of a blind spot about their own foreign policy positions. Is Assad a brutal dictator who has gassed his own people? Absolutely, as Tulsi will readily tell you. But so was Saddam Hussein. And if you, like me, opposed the Iraq War, your position was, in essence, sometimes it does not serve American interests to topple a regime, even when the leader is a brutal dictator and a war criminal. It's all fine and good to say you oppose the Iraq War now that Saddam is gone, as I do. But let's be clear. The alternative was allowing a man who gassed his own people to remain in charge. So tell me, what is the substantive difference between that view and the view of Tulsi Gabbard on Syria? After all, look at the disastrous fallout from Iraq and the disastrous fallout from our red lines in Syria. It's hard to argue that the approach we've taken has gone well for anyone, including soldiers like Tulsi, who are sent to risk their lives so that Boeing and Lockheed can have a fatter profit margin. Now, you don't have to agree with Tulsi. I don't agree with her on any number of issues. But deal with her on the policy and cut out the baseless smears and questions of her patriotism. Dissent is patriotic. Good luck overseas, Congresswoman. Sagar, this is one of those examples where I think the media has been completely unfair to her and dismissed her from the start.
Yeah, I mean, there are questions about the Assad thing, but I've seen her answer it. That's why when I interviewed her, I didn't want to waste time, be like, why did you meet with Assad? I'm much more interested in what she has to say about the future. And like, listen, you can disagree with it. You can disagree with her position. I think that's fine. She's very smart. She can have a spirited discussion about Syria policy and about the former CIA programs and all of that. But you're right. It's that people latch onto it, and let's be honest, these people don't care about Syria. It's because it's somebody like Max Boot or whomever that they saw on a CNN Global Affairs panelist tell them that they should care about this. They don't know anything about the Syrian civil war.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Another thing that I admire about her is I think it takes more courage politically to challenge the military-industrial complex in this town, which has bipartisan support, than it does to tackle almost anything else. And she does it completely fearlessly. And like you said, look, agree with her or don't, but deal with the substance and the policy rather than just trying to smear and dismiss her.
Absolutely.
Next up on Rising, despite being on opposite ends of the political spectrum, a lot of Joe Biden voters say that Bernie Sanders is their second choice, something we talk about a lot here.
Progressive YouTuber David Pakman, he's going to tackle why and discuss the latest head-to-head polling between the Democratic candidates and the president.